Alright, so it is time for another community video. I don't know which one this is, maybe the fourth or fifth, but it's where I ask you guys to ask me a whole bunch of questions that you want me to answer. I decided to answer a whole bunch this time around, so this one will be a bit longer than the rest, but these are some of my favorite videos to make, so I decided to answer more than usual. There's no order to the questions this time around. I just sort of scrolled through them and answered them randomly. Now let's not waste any more time and get right into it. So starting off with something wholesome and positive, Aaron Holfer asks, why is this game so shit? I'm going to use this question to answer all of the what's the state of the game questions. I don't know if you haven't played in a while or not, Aaron, but the game is really at its best right now. And although some of the most recent things included in this patch seem to do nothing, and Revenge is a little bugged, I'm really hopeful for what's to come. And that's just me being honest. I think UB has stepped their game up. Performance wise, it's also never been better, with the only bug I get sort of regularly has to do with the audio sounding muffled, but it goes away after a match, so it's not that big of a deal. I think if there's any time for a player to hop on, it's now. Now, by no means is the game perfect. It still has flaws that are basically rooted within its core, but it's better than it was before. I do have a feeling that UB believes it's time to start showcasing tournaments, as I said a little something on the Warriors Den this week that sort of caught my attention. But UB, please don't bother showcasing 1v1 tournaments, as I still don't think they're ready if there's money on the line. If the tournaments are for fun or bragging rights, sure, but I think right now, if they're going to showcase tournaments, they should showcase the 2v2 tournaments, as they're a bit more fun to watch. I think it's good that UB seems to be paying attention to the competitive scene, but again, I think it's a little too late, and they desperately need to add a spectator mode first and a ranked mode that works properly to get people interested. We're heading into season 10, which could potentially be my favorite season, as I'm a fan of the Samurai faction, so hopefully they do something fun with that, and because my beloved Raider will finally be getting some improvements. So yeah, I don't think For Honor is shit right now. I actually think it's in a pretty good spot. AGH8710 says, so what do you think about the new Revenge system? It's a little buggy right now, and UB knows it, and they're working on it, but if it works as intended ever, I really think that it'll be good in the long run. Every 1v1 duel in the game will no longer include Revenge when things are working right. If you are experiencing people popping Revenge while you guys are just having a fair and square 1v1, then something is wrong. Overall though, I do like the changes, as I feel I can fight more freely on a point without having to worry about my opponent popping Revenge and stalling forever until backup arrives. Noah Knit asks, should gear score come back? You know, I sort of miss gear stats, but we all know what the problems were with it, as it did feel like the gear meant something, but the advantages they provided were just too much. So if you were a new player, you were already at a disadvantage, and I know people will say, well, that's the point of leveling up and grinding, but then what about all the people that just want to try out a new hero? They're at a disadvantage too. I personally don't even bother with the new perk system. I don't bother with trying to mix and match all my gear to get multiple perks activated, but I think this is one of the only ways they could have gear mean something without putting players at a disadvantage, so I understand it. Because with the way matchmaking is right now, it's not uncommon for rep 200s to get placed into a lobby with some rep 20s. Dragon L Sumo says, so I main Shinobi, and he's by far the most fun hero to use in my opinion. At the same time, I'm very much aware of how cancerous he can be. I'm also very much aware that he's your most disliked hero. What do you think would be a good addition, removal, or replacement in his moveset to make him less annoying and more respected? I have came at Shinobi a little sideways in the past because he's sort of a nuisance in every game mode that I play, and I'm not sure if that is ever going to change. Sometimes I feel like he doesn't fit in the game, if that makes any sense, at least when compared to everyone else. In 1v1, you have to fight at his pace, where before he had the slide, and of course, with his incredible movement, he can play keep away and has amazing punishes for when you try to fight him, as well as being able to safely try and parry with the charged heavy. Then in 4s, he had the slide to help in ganks. He can sneak up on you with ranged GB. Sickle Rain is just another one of those attacks that strip control away from the player, and a few well-timed attacks will instantly kill you, so on and so on. You can look into all the little things Shinobi can do that just makes no sense. I really wish that there was just one thing that I would do to make Shinobi a good opponent to fight against. But I feel that what's in Shinobi's kit is the hero's identity. This is a hero that people do main and do enjoy and have spent money on. So I'm not really sure if Yubi can really change the foundation of the hero, as there's some part of his kit that can't just be nerfed or adjusted without killing the character. And I really wish that I could easily answer your question with a straightforward answer, but it's a tough one. If there were a few things I would change, first I think that every external guard break in the game should have an indicator. I'm genuinely shocked that Yubi hasn't done this already. Range guard break was cool at first, but it's one of those things that don't really have a counterplay if you can't see Shinobi. Maybe that's the point, but it's not too fun. You can get used to countering external guard breaks from opponents you can see, but it's tough to know if a Shinobi is ready to grab you from off screen. I mean, I could go on and on, but the things that would make him less, as you say, quote unquote, cancerous or just obnoxious would completely change the character. He'd be a completely different hero. Like, if you remove the armor on kick and backflip, he'd be in trouble. You nerf his damage to align with everyone else. You remove the range guard break or make it significantly slower and easier to react to, then what's the point in using it anymore? Things like that. And these would require huge changes and additions to compensate. If you change Shinobi into a close range fighter like everyone else, is he even Shinobi anymore? In short, I think the things that make him annoying are a part of his design. There are only a few things that we could change that would alleviate the headache, but things like backflip and range guard break, along with some annoying design choices, would still be present, as I don't think we could really change those things too much nowadays. Vitor Vina says, what do you think about heroes that are mid-revenge being easily killed after someone lands certain moves? And then he goes on to name a bunch of crowd control moves. So I don't really think these attacks are a problem for revenge, as revenge isn't supposed to make you an unstoppable killing machine. I think most of these attacks wouldn't be a problem at all if they didn't strip control away from the player for so long. I'm all for proper ganking. I think there should be a reward for ganking properly, but nothing should guarantee an instant kill. And almost every one of these attacks can either get you killed instantly or bring you down to 1 bar of health in a gank. If there's one thing in this game that could get a wide sweeping change, it would be that all crowd control attacks that have some sort of animation will be cancelled after one hit, or allow the player on the opposing end to defend themselves after one external attack. Before, this wasn't the biggest issue, but now that players are more experienced and know how to play patiently and gank properly, I feel it's one of the next steps towards making this game as enjoyable as possible, and Yubi is already working on it, just slowly. Some of the moves on your list are no problem at all to me, but others, namely range guard break and stampede charge, are attacks where you should just put your controller down as your life is over. If you have revenge, there's a chance you'll survive if there aren't enough people around. But yeah, I do see where you're coming from, as even if you do have revenge, you could still be facing up to 4 different things that you listed, and they can all end you instantly. Dabio Gaming says, what do you think of having a battle hardened armor set for the whole cast? For example, a warden with a cracked or missing helmet with plates of armor either torn or missing, or a warlord with a splintered shield. They could all have cuts and scars on their faces and bodies, and it could give off a really gritty, rough, and badass vibe to the whole cast. The more I read what you guys have to say about cosmetics and whatnot, the more I realize that Yubi is missing out on a whole bunch of opportunities that would make this game more enjoyable. It would make complete sense if they did have, as you say, battle hardened gear that was unlocked earlier on. Honestly, I would like it more if there was damage gear available at lower ranks. I think with the new weapons in this event, Yubi has seen that people do like the more basic designs that aren't so flashy or royal, and while some of the equipment in the game currently does look a tad worn, there's nothing that screams that it's been through a few battles. As for cuts and scars on the bodies, I think that it would be cool, but I'd like to see more damage on our heroes as we go through the matches. Right now there is some sort of mid-game damage on your hero's model, but it happens after you get hit, and the damage is usually these huge fatal looking gouges. I'm thinking more of like scuffed, dinged, and damaged armor throughout a game But yes, I do think that we need some more gritty armor. Alright, Metal with a long one. I'll leave the whole comment up for you guys to read it if you want to. I'll try to address this one. Do you think that the developers behind For Honor will ever standardize every hero to a similar playing field? I've talked about this a few times over the past 2 years. Now, admittedly, Yubi is in a really tough spot when it comes to giving every hero in this game some sort of opener. You can't just give every hero a bash. That would be boring and frustrating. You can't just give every hero a 400 millisecond neutral light. That would again be frustrating and boring. It's up to Yubi to find new ways to let opponents land damage from neutral, and they are trying to, as we've seen with the Wulin, like with Nusha's traps, Shaolin's way to get in the key stance. There's the soft feints into an attack or a bash, like with Kinsei, PK, Jengjun, Raider. We've seen chargeable heavies with multiple timings, different dodge attacks like with Shaolin or Gladiator, and so on. Yubi is trying to give every hero something to fight with. It's just that not everything works, and if we bring every hero to a similar playing field, the game would get stale, as there'd be no real variety in the most popular game modes, the 4v4 modes. Every hero needs strengths and weaknesses and needs some way to open up an opponent, and I think that the devs are actually trying to make as many heroes as possible viable. Again, this is something that is being worked on a hero to hero basis with the reworks and improvements. So basically, I don't think they'd ever standardize every hero across the board, but they are certainly trying to give every hero a way to fight against turtles. As for the rest of the comment where you say no content creators talk about Centurion, I'm sure I've seen others talk about him, and I've made maybe 4 videos on him since his release, with the more recent ones being about how he does need help. And when you say that every hero should have access to the same tools, again, the game would become boring. You also can't really compare For Honor, a brand new 3D medieval brawler or fighter, to highly regarded 2D fighting classics like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. Even in those games, there are a lot of variety. Yeah, every character does have access to the essentials like attacking, blocking, and so on, but to say that the only real differences in the characters outside of the way they look is speed and damage isn't really true, as if you are just talking about the essentials, then all the characters in For Honor have access to the essentials. They can all do light attacks, heavies, block, parry, dodge, and so on, but they all have different qualities, and so do the characters in MK or Street Fighter. Every character in Mortal Kombat doesn't have access to a projectile or a tick throw or a command grab or a teleport or dot damage and so on. And all the characters in those games aren't viable either, just like in For Honor. Some characters can be completely busted, and some might not even be worth using. Gummy Inc. asks, what do you expect from the incoming samurai hero after your introduction to Black Prior? Alright, so I'm definitely not expecting another bash heavy hero. I really hope that it's not another bash hero. I'll talk about what I hope for later on in the video, as this question is about expectations. I don't think the community's reaction to Black Prior will mean much, as this hero has probably been in development for a while now. I think the hero will have a more offensive approach and offer something we haven't seen yet, something that will play around with the core mechanics. I don't think it'll be anything like a crushing guard like I want, as I think that is something that will be reserved for the Warhammer Viking, but I'm not really sure what else they can do. None of us expected anything like the Bulwark counter, so honestly we'll just have to wait and see. I don't think he'll be busted on release though. I'm expecting a fun, unique hero who's a bit more stoic with some really hard-hitting attacks. Cody Crocker, how do you continue to have fun in For Honor? I'm rep 70 and just can't find the fun in the game anymore. It's becoming a repetitive grinding routine. It's basically just down to moderation. Don't play the game too much, and when you do feel that it's becoming grindy, take a break and don't play it for a few days. There are a bunch of times where I just don't want to play anymore. Then I take a break for 2 or 3 days, and when I come back, the game is fun again. It's also fun when you just play to finish your orders and log off. At least that's what I do, and it keeps me from getting frustrated, as I don't like to play a game when I'm not having fun, as to me, that's sort of the point of playing a video game. I also tend to not take it too seriously, as taking For Honor very seriously or letting some of the things get to you is just an exercise in frustration. The Ultimate Biscuit asks, what do you think of adding voice lines in the hero select screen? I am 100% on board with this. I love voice lines, especially memorable ones, as long as there's variety to them, as I connect with some and remember them for a long time. And I think it adds a bit of depth to the hero. As long as you can toggle them on and off as you please, I think this would do nothing but improve the game and could give Yubi a chance to expand upon the lore, as it seems they're very much into that currently. And while they're at it, hopefully they could continue working on the responsive dialogue system. Tubester asks, do you think that spamming the same attack in a short amount of time like Glad Zone or bashes should consume more stamina each time to make fights less of a safe attack spam game? I honestly think that if there was some sort of way to add, say, a stamina penalty to attacks like Glad Zone or Vorticer Bash, that nothing would really change. That could even slow the game down even more in a duel if you're fighting against a Vortiger or a Conqueror who rely on these bashes as part of their offense. What's to stop them from bashing once or twice and then just waiting for the cooldown is over, or rolling away, or of course my favorite, turning around and sprinting away to get what they lost back? It also depends on how many times they would need to spam the move in a row before the stamina penalty is set in. And would it reset after they throw another attack? I like the idea, but I think that it could cause more problems. I can't stand being bashed to death, it's pretty frustrating, but I think a better solution would be to make all the bashes equally punishable based on their speed, and to not have bashes in the game that do a ton of damage. Bashes are just a part of this game, and I'm not sure of anything that could fix the whole safe attack game. I think that's more of an issue with the game itself, since it's so easy to completely negate some forms of offense. It's probably better to work on each hero's bash individually rather than just make a sweeping change like this. So look at Glad Zone and then make changes, and then look at Vortiger's bash and make changes, and so on until we're in a good spot. It's just unfortunate that there are heroes in this game that really do use their bash as a crutch or as a huge part of their offense, like again Vortiger. Burger Lord asks, what is your opinion on rolling out of fights? So I actually don't mind that you can roll away from fights, but I think that every hero in the game should be able to deal with an opponent who chooses to roll away. I mean, rolling does need to be in the game, as you need a way to disengage quickly and retreat from a fight. It's a nuisance in 1v1, but rather than removing it or heavily nerfing it and making it slow, I just think that every hero should be able to catch a roller with an attack, like how Warden can catch people with his dodge heavy. Silver Swords asks, how do you feel about the current state of the game on console? Do you think that the tier lists are applicable to console? My opinion on console For Honor hasn't changed since I made this video, as I haven't touched the game on PS4 or Xbox since then, as it's just more frustrating to play. As for the tier lists, I'll tie in Lovely Kachi's question and answer them both at once. The tier list that everyone talks about, Setmix's tier list, is made for tournament and extremely high level play. For players like me and the vast majority of For Honor players, that tier list doesn't really apply to our games. Most of it comes down to our skill as players. Hero selection does play a part. I mean, we all know that Berserker is better than Ibushi, but we're not playing for money or playing optimally and trying to win by like stalling and stuff like that. I mean, the tier list does probably apply to console tournaments with a few of the placements shuffled around, but I assume that it mostly stays the same. Landon Thetford, thanks for being so active in the comments. Landon asks, how do you feel about the nerfs to JJ and BP? Do you think Yubi is heading in the right direction with balance, and what do you want to see from the new hero? I like both sets of nerfs, although I don't really feel the Black Prior nerf. I do think Yubi is heading in the right direction for sure, as I talked about a little bit ago. For the Samarax hero, I really just want something tanky, a high health pool, an oppressive offense with high risk, high reward options, and a hero that's a staple in a team fight without an over-reliance on feats. I'd like to see a new mechanic, like something that could break your guard if you block it long enough or something. I'm honestly down for anything as long as they're not bash reliant and as long as their armor is stylish and their fight style is cool. Damon Demon, are you at all surprised that the new event is already at low activity? No, not at all. This happens almost every time a new event releases, as usually, whether the mode is fun or not, nothing really holds up to Dominion when it comes to 4v4. They need to do something really unique to keep an event on high activity for more than a few days. Oh cat, no cab. If we make the openers unreactable, a bunch of people are going to be upset, wildly upset, as there's a ton of people who still have issues with an Orochi throwing out light attacks. What about during team fights? It'd be a nightmare, as anything in front of you would be so fast that it'd be tough to react to any external attacks. I personally sort of like the route they're going down now, as it's not really impossible to open anyone up, and I'd rather they introduce more ways to open opponents up rather than just making openers fast, as players already don't like having to make a prediction to punish a hero, like with Vortigern's Bash. Now that I think about it, I do like the direction that they're going in now. Anyways, that's all I've got for this video. I didn't answer all of the questions you guys sent me, but I tried to answer as many as possible. As usual, I do want to hear what you guys think, so talk to me down in the comments about anything we talked about in this video. As for me, I'll be playing Sekiro for the next couple of days. Hopefully I like it. I'll let you guys know. And as always, if you agree with me or just like the video, feel free to leave a like, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.